Sometimes the cruelest people are the ones who are supposed to love you most. Her name was Linda. 38 years old. Plus size. Successful accountant. And she was about to marry the love of her life. But this isn't a simple love story. This is a story about family. About cruelty disguised as concern. And about how far some people will go to ruin someone else's happiness. Linda had given up on love years ago. After high school, she dated here and there, but nothing ever stuck. Men would be interested at first, but then, they'd see her body and suddenly have excuses. Other priorities. Better options. She told herself she was fine alone. Built a good career. Had wonderful friends. Learned to love herself even when the world told her she shouldn't. And then came her 20th high school reunion. She almost didn't go. Spent weeks debating whether she wanted to face all those people from her past. The ones who'd made jokes about her weight. The ones who'd made her feel invisible. But her best friend convinced her. You're successful, Linda. You're beautiful. Go show them what they missed. So she went. Wearing a dress that made her feel confident, head held high. And that's where she saw Daniel. Daniel Martinez. The quiet kid from chemistry class who'd always been kind to her. Who'd never made her feel less than. Who'd moved away junior year and she'd never seen again. He was standing by the punch bowl, looking just as nervous as she felt. A little older. A little grayer. But those same kind eyes. Their eyes met across the room. And he smiled. That genuine, warm smile she remembered. He walked over. Linda? Linda Chen? Is that really you? Daniel. Oh my God. I can't believe you're here. They talked all night. Ignored everyone else at the reunion. Just caught up on 20 years of life. He'd been married before. Divorced 5 years ago. No kids. He was an elementary school teacher now. Still that same gentle soul she remembered. And when the night ended, he asked for her number. I know this might sound crazy, he said, looking nervous. But I'd really like to see you again. Maybe dinner? Linda's heart fluttered. I'd like that too. That was 2 years ago. 2 years of the most beautiful relationship Linda had ever known. Daniel treated her like she was precious. He loved her laugh, her intelligence, her passion for cooking. And yes, he loved her body too. Never made her feel like she needed to change. Never suggested diets or gym memberships. Just loved her exactly as she was. 6 months ago, he proposed. On the beach at sunset. Got down on one knee in the sand and said, Linda, you're the best thing that ever happened to me. Will you marry me? She said yes through happy tears. But not everyone was happy about their engagement. Daniel's mother, Patricia, made her feelings clear from day one. Linda met her 3 months into the relationship. Patricia was 62 years old, thin, elegant. The kind of woman who wore pearls to the grocery store and thought appearances were everything. She looked Linda up and down when they met. Just once. But that look said everything. So you're the woman Daniel's been seeing, Patricia said, her smile tight and cold. How nice. Daniel squeezed Linda's hand. Mom, Linda's amazing. I'm really lucky. I'm sure you are, dear. Patricia turned away, conversation over. Then there was Heather. Daniel's younger sister. 34 years old. Size 4. Blonde. Beautiful in that magazine perfect way. And absolutely convinced that Linda wasn't good enough for her brother. Are you sure about this? Heather asked Daniel at a family dinner, not even bothering to lower her voice. I mean, she's not really your type, is she? She's exactly my type, Daniel said firmly. And I'd appreciate it if you'd be respectful. Heather rolled her eyes. I'm just looking out for you. You could do better. Linda heard every word, felt every judgment. But Daniel held her hand under the table and later told her, ignore them. They'll come around. And if they don't, you're more important to me than their approval. But they never came around. Over the next year and a half, Patricia and Heather made Linda's life miserable in small, calculated ways. They forgot to invite her to family gatherings. When she was included, they'd make comments about the food. Oh, Linda, maybe you should try the salad instead. It's healthier. They'd talk about Daniel's ex-wife. Remember how beautiful Sarah was? Such a tiny thing. Daniel, don't you miss having a partner who could keep up with you on hikes? When Linda and Daniel got engaged, it got worse. Wedding planning became a nightmare. Patricia insisted on being involved in every decision. And she had opinions about everything. You're wearing white? Patricia asked when Linda showed her the dress she'd chosen. Are you sure that's appropriate? For your size? Linda felt like she'd been slapped. It's my wedding dress. I'm wearing white. I just think something darker would be more flattering, dear. More slimming. Daniel stepped in. Mom, enough. Linda looks beautiful in whatever she wears. The dress is perfect. But the damage was done. Linda went home that night and cried. Stared at herself in the mirror and wondered if Patricia was right. If she'd look ridiculous in a white wedding dress. Daniel found her. Held her. Hey. Look at me. You're going to be the most beautiful bride anyone has ever seen. Not in spite of your body, but because you're you. Confident. Radiant. Perfect. Your family hates me. My family is wrong. And honestly? If they can't see how incredible you are, that's their loss. Not yours. Linda tried on the dress again the next day. A beautiful white gown with lace sleeves and a flowing skirt. Custom made to fit her curves perfectly. She looked at herself in the mirror. And this time, she saw what Daniel saw. She was beautiful. Before we go any further into this, I just want to say, if you feel a connection to these stories, a small click on that like button and subscribe would mean more to me than you know. It lets me know I'm not just speaking into the void, that you're really here with me. Alright, let's continue. The months leading up to the wedding were tense. Patricia tried to take over the guest list. Do we really need to invite all of Linda's coworkers? The venue only holds 300 people. We're inviting everyone we want there, Mom. That's final. Heather complained about her bridesmaid dress. This color makes me look washed out. Can't Linda choose something more flattering? The dresses are already ordered, Heather. You'll survive. But the worst came 3 weeks before the wedding. Linda was at Patricia's house picking up some family photos Daniel wanted for the reception slideshow. She walked in using the key Daniel had given her and heard voices in the kitchen. Patricia and Heather. Talking. I still can't believe he's actually going through with this, Heather said. Marrying her. It's embarrassing, Patricia replied. What will people think? Daniel could have had anyone. And he chose that. Linda froze in the hallway. We should do something, Heather said. Make her realize she's not right for this family. Like what? I don't know. Something to make the wedding memorable. For all the wrong reasons. They both laughed. Cruel, cold laughter. Linda backed out quietly, got in her car, and sat there shaking with anger and hurt. She told Daniel that night. He was furious. I'm calling them right now. This ends today. Daniel, wait. Don't. Why not? They're being horrible to you. I won't tolerate it. Linda took a deep breath. Because if you confront them now, they'll just deny it. Get defensive. Make me look like I'm being oversensitive. Let's just get through the wedding. After that, you can deal with your family however you need to. Daniel pulled her close. I'm so sorry. You deserve so much better than this. I have you. That's all I need. But Linda couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. That Patricia and Heather weren't done. That they were planning something. She just didn't know what. The week before the wedding, everything seemed to calm down. Patricia and Heather were polite. Almost pleasant. They attended the rehearsal dinner without incident, smiled for photos, played the part of loving family. Linda started to relax. Maybe she'd been paranoid. Maybe they'd finally accepted that this wedding was happening whether they liked it or not. The morning of the wedding, Linda woke up in her hotel room surrounded by her bridesmaids. Her best friend Emma was there. Her cousin Joy. 2 friends from work. They helped her get ready. Did her hair in soft waves. Her makeup natural and glowing. And then, the dress. Linda stepped into it, and Emma zipped her up. She turned to look in the mirror. And she gasped. She looked beautiful. Truly, genuinely beautiful. The dress fit perfectly. Hugged her curves in all the right places. The lace sleeves were elegant. The train flowed behind her like something from a fairy tale. Oh, Linda, Emma whispered. You're stunning. Linda felt tears prick her eyes. I actually feel beautiful. You are beautiful. And Daniel's going to lose his mind when he sees you. The ceremony was outdoors at a beautiful garden venue. 300 guests. Flowers everywhere. String quartet playing softly. Linda walked down the aisle on her father's arm. And when Daniel saw her, he actually started crying. You're perfect, he mouthed. The ceremony was beautiful. They said their vows. Exchanged rings. Kissed as husband and wife while everyone applauded. Linda looked out at the crowd and saw Patricia's tight smile. Heather's barely concealed scowl. But she didn't care. She'd married the man she loved. That was all that mattered. The reception was set up in the same garden. Long tables. String lights. A buffet with all of Linda and Daniel's favorite foods. Linda had insisted on the buffet. She loved cooking, and she wanted comfort food at her wedding. Sliders. Mac and cheese. Her famous pulled pork. And yes, fries with ketchup. Everything was perfect. For exactly 45 minutes. That's when Linda saw Heather near the buffet table, picking up a bottle of ketchup. A big bottle. The industrial kind that squirts everywhere if you're not careful. And Heather was walking toward her, smiling. That fake, sugary smile. Linda had a split second to register what was about to happen, but not enough time to move. The morning had started like a dream. Linda woke up at 6:30 in the hotel suite, sunlight streaming through the curtains. For a moment, she just lay there, letting it sink in. Today was her wedding day. After all the stress, all the planning, all the drama with Patricia and Heather, today was finally here. And nothing was going to ruin it. Emma was already awake, brewing coffee in the little kitchenette. Morning, bride. How'd you sleep? Surprisingly well, actually. Linda sat up, stretching. I thought I'd be too nervous, but I'm ready. I'm so ready to marry him. That's because you're marrying the right person, Emma said, handing her a mug. When it's right, there's no cold feet. Just excitement. The other bridesmaids started waking up. Joy stumbled out of the bathroom, her hair in a messy bun. Is it too early for champagne? It's never too early on a wedding day, Linda laughed. They spent the morning getting ready. Hair and makeup artists arrived at 8. Turned the hotel suite into a beauty salon. Music playing. Mimosas flowing. Laughter filling the room. Linda sat in the chair while the stylist worked on her hair, watching her friends in the mirror. These women had been with her through everything. Breakups. Career changes. Self-doubt. And now they were here, celebrating the happiest day of her life. I'm so lucky, she said suddenly. Emma looked up from where she was getting her makeup done. We're the lucky ones. Getting to be part of this day with you. By 11, Linda's hair was finished. Soft waves cascading down her back. The makeup artist had given her a natural, glowing look. She looked like herself, just elevated. Then came the dress. It had been hanging in the closet all morning, wrapped in protective covering. Emma and Joy carefully removed the covering, revealing the beautiful white gown. Linda had tried it on a dozen times during fittings. But somehow, putting it on today felt different. More real. The bridesmaids helped her step into it, pulled it up carefully. Emma zipped up the back while Joy fluffed the train. Okay, Emma said. Turn around. Look. Linda turned to face the full-length mirror. And she couldn't breathe. The woman looking back at her was radiant. The dress hugged her curves perfectly. The lace sleeves were delicate and romantic. The sweetheart neckline showed just enough. The train pulled behind her like something from a magazine. But more than that, she looked happy, confident, beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with size or shape and everything to do with joy. Oh my God, Joy whispered. Linda, you're absolutely stunning. Linda felt tears welling up. Don't make me cry. My makeup. Too late. Emma was already crying. I've never seen you look more beautiful. There was a knock at the door. Linda's father poked his head in. Everyone decent? I wanted to see my little girl before, oh. He stopped in the doorway, his eyes filling with tears. Linda. Honey. You look just like your mother did on our wedding day. Linda's mother had passed away 5 years ago. Cancer. She would have loved Daniel. Would have been so happy to see this day. I wish she was here, Linda whispered. She is, her father said, touching his heart. Right here. And she's so proud of you. At 1 o'clock, the bridal party left for the venue. The garden was even more beautiful than Linda remembered. Someone had strung thousands of tiny lights through the trees. White chairs were set up in neat rows facing an arch covered in roses. The early September weather was perfect. Warm but not hot. A gentle breeze. Linda could see guests starting to arrive. Friends. Co-workers. Distant relatives. 300 people here to celebrate their love. And somewhere in that crowd, Patricia and Heather. Linda pushed the thought away. Not today. She wasn't going to let them ruin this. The ceremony started at 2. Linda waited in the bridal suite near the garden entrance, holding her father's arm, listening to the string quartet play. She could hear the officiant speaking. Could hear Daniel's voice, though she couldn't make out the words. Then the music changed. The wedding march. Ready, sweetheart? Her father asked. More than anything. The doors opened. Everyone stood. And Linda began walking down the aisle. She saw faces turning toward her. Saw people smiling. Heard gasps of, she looks beautiful. But she only had eyes for Daniel. He was standing at the altar in his navy blue suit, looking more handsome than she'd ever seen him. And when he saw her, his face just crumbled. In the best way. Tears streamed down his face. He put his hand over his mouth, completely overcome. His best man, Marcus, put a hand on his shoulder. Steady. Supportive. Linda reached the altar, and her father kissed her cheek before placing her hand in Daniel's. "You're perfect," Daniel whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "You're so perfect." The ceremony was everything Linda had dreamed of. They'd written their own vows. Daniel went first, his voice shaking but clear. "Linda, 20 years ago, I was a scared kid who moved away and always wondered what if. What if I'd been brave enough to tell you how special you were? What if I'd asked you to prom? What if I'd stayed? And then, at that reunion, I got my second chance. The universe gave us back to each other. And I promise you, I will never take that for granted. I will love you every single day. I will support your dreams. I will laugh at your jokes even when they're terrible. And I will always, always choose you. No matter what." That last part, Linda knew he meant it. No matter what his family thought. No matter what anyone thought. He was choosing her. Linda took a shaky breath and began her vows. "Daniel, you taught me something I didn't think was possible. You taught me that I deserve to be loved exactly as I am. Not when I lose weight. Not when I change. Right now. Today. This me. You see all of me and you love all of me. And that gift, that precious gift of being seen and loved, I will treasure it every day of my life. I promise to be your partner. Your best friend. Your biggest supporter. And I promise to make you laugh even on the hard days. Especially on the hard days. I love you." The officiant smiled. "By the power vested in me by the state of California, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Daniel, you may kiss your bride." Daniel cupped Linda's face in his hands and kissed her like they were the only two people in the world. The crowd erupted in applause. They walked back down the aisle together as husband and wife. Linda felt like she was floating. Like nothing in the world could touch her happiness. She glanced at the crowd as they passed. Saw friends cheering. Saw her father wiping tears. And saw Patricia sitting stiff and unsmiling. Heather beside her, whispering something with a smirk on her face. Linda squeezed Daniel's hand tighter and kept walking. Not today. They couldn't ruin today. The cocktail hour was held in a different section of the garden while the ceremony space was transformed for the reception. Servers circulated with drinks and appetizers. The photographer pulled Linda and Daniel aside for couple photos. "You two are naturals," the photographer said. "The way you look at each other, these are going to be incredible." Daniel spun Linda around, making her laugh, dipped her dramatically, kissed her forehead, her nose, her lips. "I can't believe you're my wife," he kept saying. "My wife. Get used to it, husband." An hour later, the reception space was ready. Long tables draped in white linens. Centerpieces of roses and candles. String lights creating a canopy of stars overhead. And at the far end, the buffet tables Linda had insisted on. All her favorite comfort foods. The menu she and Daniel had spent weeks perfecting. Nothing fancy. Nothing pretentious. Just good, delicious food that made people happy. And yes, there were French fries. With bottles of ketchup lined up for people to use. The DJ announced their entrance. "Ladies and gentlemen, for the first time as husband and wife, Mr. and Mrs. Daniel and Linda Martinez." They walked into thunderous applause. Did their first dance to a song that meant something to both of them. Cut the cake. Gave speeches. Daniel's speech thanked everyone for coming and ended with, "Most importantly, thank you to my beautiful wife for choosing me. For seeing something in that nervous kid from chemistry class and giving him a second chance. I'm the luckiest man alive." Linda's speech was shorter. "Thank you all for being here. For celebrating with us. And special thanks to my bridesmaids who put up with my wedding planning stress for a year. I love you all." She deliberately didn't thank Patricia or Heather. Didn't even mention them. Let them notice that omission. The party kicked into full swing. People were dancing. Eating. Laughing. The energy was perfect. Linda and Daniel made their way around to different tables, greeting guests. Accepting congratulations. Taking photos. At one point, they reached Patricia and Heather's table. Patricia stood stiffly. "Congratulations, Daniel. It was a lovely ceremony." "Thanks, Mom." Daniel's tone was polite but cool. Heather smiled that fake smile. "Linda, your dress is interesting. Very brave choice." Linda felt Daniel tense beside her, ready to defend her. But she put a hand on his arm. "Thank you, Heather. I feel beautiful in it." That's what matters. They moved on quickly. I'm sorry, Daniel muttered. They're awful. I know. But look around. 300 people are here celebrating with us. 2 people being miserable doesn't change how perfect this day is. And it was perfect. For exactly 45 minutes. Linda was near the buffet, talking to one of her coworkers about the pulled pork recipe, when she saw movement in her peripheral vision. Heather. Walking toward her. Carrying something. A large bottle of ketchup. The industrial size. The kind that, if squeezed wrong, would explode everywhere. Linda's stomach dropped. Everything seemed to move in slow motion. Heather was walking fast. Too fast. Looking at her phone like she wasn't paying attention. But Linda saw it. The calculation in Heather's eyes. The way she angled the bottle. This wasn't an accident about to happen. This was planned. Linda tried to step back. Tried to move out of the way. But Heather was faster. She slammed into Linda full force, and the ketchup bottle, already loosened, exploded on impact. Red. Everywhere. All over Linda's white dress. Her lace sleeves. Her bodice. Her train. Ketchup splattered up onto her face. Into her hair. Down her arms. For one frozen second, everyone just stared. And then Heather started screaming. Oh my God. She's bleeding. Someone stabbed her. The scream cut through the music like a knife. Someone stabbed her. Oh my God, there's blood everywhere. Heather was backing away from Linda, her hands over her mouth, eyes wide with manufactured horror. The performance of a lifetime. For a split second, Linda just stood there, dripping in ketchup, too shocked to process what was happening. Then the chaos began. Guests started screaming. Chairs scraped as people jumped to their feet. Someone knocked over a table. Glasses shattered. Call 911, someone yelled. Where's the knife? Did anyone see a knife? Get back. Everyone get back. Linda tried to speak. No, wait, it's not, it's just ketchup. But her voice was drowned out by the panic. By 300 people suddenly terrified that there was a stabber at the wedding. Patricia chose that exact moment to let out a theatrical gasp and collapse. Just crumpled to the ground like she'd been shot. 2 guests rushed to her side. Someone help. The groom's mother fainted. Daniel was pushing through the crowd, trying to get to Linda. Move. That's my wife. Let me through. But people were packed too tight, everyone trying to see what was happening while simultaneously trying to get away. Heather was still performing. I just walked past her and she was covered in blood. I think someone stabbed her from behind. There might be a killer here. It's ketchup. Linda finally managed to shout. Everyone, please, it's just ketchup. There's no blood. But no one was listening. The panic had taken on a life of its own. Someone had already called 911. Linda could hear the person on the phone. Yes, there's been a stabbing at a wedding. The bride. There's blood everywhere. We need ambulances and police immediately. No. Linda tried again. Please listen. It's not blood. Look. She held up her arm, showing the thick red sauce. It's ketchup. From the buffet. But in the chaos, in the fading evening light with string lights creating shadows, the red staining her white dress did look alarmingly like blood. And people were too panicked to think rationally. The DJ had cut the music. Someone was crying. Others were pulling out their phones, recording the chaos. Linda felt humiliation wash over her in waves. This was her wedding day. Her perfect day. And she was standing here covered in ketchup, looking like a crime scene victim, while 300 people stared at her in horror. She caught sight of Heather in the crowd. For just a moment, their eyes met. And Heather smiled. A tiny, triumphant smile that no one else could see. This had been the plan all along. This something memorable Patricia and Heather had discussed. Not just to ruin the dress. But to create a scene so horrific, so traumatic, that Linda would never forget it. That everyone would talk about it forever. The bride who got stabbed at her own wedding. Daniel finally reached her, pulling her into his arms. Linda, are you okay? Are you hurt? I'm fine. Daniel, it's just ketchup. It's not blood. I know. I can see that. He turned to the crowd. Everyone, please. She's not hurt. It's ketchup from the buffet. There's no emergency. But it was too late. In the distance, sirens were already wailing. Getting closer. 3 police cars and 2 ambulances screeched into the venue parking lot 4 minutes later. Officers poured out, hands on their weapons, scanning for threats. Paramedics rushed in with a stretcher and medical bags. Where's the victim? One of the paramedics called out. A guest pointed at Linda. There. The bride. The paramedics rushed over. One of them, a young woman with kind eyes, knelt beside Linda. "Ma'am, can you tell me where you're hurt?" "I'm not hurt," Linda said, her voice shaking. "It's ketchup. Someone spilled ketchup on me." The paramedic looked at the red substance covering Linda's dress. Touched it with a gloved hand. Sniffed it. "She's right," the paramedic called to her partner. "It's condiment. Not blood." But the damage was already done. Police were interviewing witnesses. Did anyone see what happened? Who was standing near the bride when the incident occurred? Multiple people pointed at Heather. She was right there. She was the one who screamed about stabbing. One of the officers, a tall man with a no-nonsense expression, approached Heather. "Ma'am, can you tell me what you saw?" Heather put on her most innocent face. "I was walking past her, and suddenly she was covered in red. It looked like blood. I panicked. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to cause all this." "You said someone stabbed her," the officer pointed out. "Those were your exact words according to multiple witnesses." I was scared. I wasn't thinking clearly." "Were you carrying anything when you approached the bride?" Heather's eyes flickered. "No. I don't think so." But another guest spoke up. An older man Linda didn't know. "That's not true, officer. I saw her. She was carrying a large bottle of ketchup. She walked right into the bride, and the ketchup went everywhere. Then she started screaming about stabbing." The officer's expression hardened. "Is that true, ma'am?" "It was an accident." Heather's voice rose. "I tripped. The bottle was already open. I didn't mean for it to spill." "But you did mean to yell about a stabbing when you knew it was ketchup?" Heather's mouth opened and closed. No good answer to that question. Daniel's best man, Marcus, stepped forward. Linda had met him a few times. Nice guy. Calm. Professional. She remembered Daniel mentioning he was a detective with the San Diego Police Department. Marcus showed his badge to the officer in charge. "Hey, Thompson. I'm the best man here. Can I have a word?" The officer nodded, and they stepped aside. Linda couldn't hear what Marcus was saying, but she saw him gesture toward the venue building, toward where the security cameras would be. Her heart lifted slightly. Security cameras. They would show exactly what happened. That Heather had deliberately walked into her. That this wasn't an accident. But right now, she was still standing in her destroyed dress, covered in ketchup, while paramedics checked her vital signs and police interviewed guests. Her wedding reception had turned into a crime scene investigation. Patricia had recovered from her faint and was now sobbing dramatically. "This is terrible. Poor Daniel. Poor Linda. What a nightmare." Playing the concerned mother-in-law beautifully, Linda felt tears burning her eyes. Not from pain. From pure humiliation. All these people. All these witnesses. Her coworkers. Her family. Daniel's friends. They were all seeing her like this. Covered in ketchup. Looking ridiculous. Being examined by paramedics like she was actually injured. And everyone had their phones out. Recording. Taking photos. This would be all over social media within the hour. The ketchup bride. The wedding disaster. The cautionary tale people would tell for years. Daniel held her tighter. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." "It's not your fault," Linda whispered. "It's my family's fault. My sister did this deliberately." "I know she did." One of the paramedics finished her examination. "Ma'am, you're not injured, but you should probably clean up. That ketchup is going to stain if you don't wash it out soon." Linda looked down at her dress. Her beautiful, perfect dress. The one she'd saved for. The one she'd felt so beautiful in just hours ago. It was ruined. Completely ruined. Covered in thick red ketchup from the bodice to the train. The lace sleeves were soaked. The delicate beading stained. Even if they could wash it, it would never be white again. Never be pristine. Never be the dress she'd dreamed of wearing. A bridesmaid approached with towels. "Come on, sweetie. Let's get you cleaned up." But where? The reception was still going on. Or it had been. Now it was just a crowd of confused, uncomfortable guests standing around while police took statements. The venue coordinator rushed over, looking frantic. "I'm so sorry about all this. We can take you to the bridal suite. There's a shower there." Linda nodded numbly and let herself be led away. Daniel came with her, holding her hand, ignoring the police officer who tried to ask him questions. In the bridal suite, Linda stood in front of the mirror and stared at herself. She looked like a horror movie victim. Ketchup in her hair. On her face. Dripping down the front of her dress. The woman in the mirror didn't look like a beautiful bride anymore. She looked like a joke. Like the punchline to a cruel prank, Emma helped her out of the dress. It was heavy with ketchup, the fabric saturated. They laid it in the bathtub, but even Linda could see it was beyond saving. She stood there in her undergarments, shaking. From cold. From shock. From rage. I hate them, she whispered. I hate them so much. I know, Emma said gently. But Linda, you can't let them win. They did this to hurt you. To ruin your day. Don't give them that satisfaction. They already ruined it. Look at me. Look at my dress. My wedding is over. Daniel knelt in front of her, taking her hands. No. It's not over. We're married. That's what matters. Everything else is just noise. Easy for you to say. You're not the one who got humiliated in front of 300 people. He flinched. You're right. I'm sorry. This is my fault. My toxic family. I should have never let them come. I should have cut them off years ago. Linda took a shaky breath. I need a shower. I need to wash this off. Take your time. I'll be right here. Linda stood under the hot water for a long time, watching red ketchup swirl down the drain, washing it out of her hair, off her skin, trying to wash away the humiliation and the anger. But some stains go deeper than fabric. When she finally emerged, wrapped in a hotel robe, Daniel was on the phone. His face was tight with anger. I don't care what you think happened, Heather. You ruined her dress. You caused a panic. What? No. No, I don't accept that it was an accident. You know what? I'm done. I'm done with you and Mom. You're not welcome in our lives anymore. Don't call me. Don't come to our house. We're done. He hung up and looked at Linda. She tried to say it was all a misunderstanding, that she was trying to help. Of course she did. Emma poked her head in. Hey. Marcus wants to talk to you both. He says it's important. Marcus came in, still in his suit, looking serious. I talked to the officers. They pulled the security footage from the venue cameras. Linda's heart jumped. And? It shows everything. Heather walking toward you with the ketchup bottle already open. She clearly targets you. Bumps into you deliberately. The ketchup spills. And then she immediately starts screaming about stabbing before you even react. It's not ambiguous. It's clearly intentional. So what does that mean? Daniel asked. It means Heather filed a false police report when she called 911. She claimed there was a stabbing when she knew there wasn't. That's a crime. And causing public panic, disrupting a lawful gathering. There are a few charges that could apply here. Linda felt a spark of something. Not quite hope, but close. Can we press charges? You can. The question is, do you want to? Linda thought about Patricia fainting. About Heather's smug smile. About the weeks of planning this disaster. About standing in front of 300 people covered in ketchup on what should have been the happiest day of her life. Yes, Linda said quietly. I want to press charges. Both of them. Heather for the false report and assault. Patricia for whatever we can get her for. Marcus nodded. I'll talk to the officers. Make sure they have everything they need. This is going to get messy though. Family charges. Media attention. Are you sure you're ready for that? Linda looked at Daniel. Thought about the life they were building. The family they were creating. A family built on love and respect. Not cruelty and manipulation. I'm sure, she said. They tried to destroy our wedding. They need to face consequences. Daniel squeezed her hand. Whatever you want to do, I'm with you. 100%. Marcus left to coordinate with the police. Emma brought Linda some clothes from the emergency bag they'd packed. Comfortable jeans. A soft sweater. Linda got dressed slowly, feeling exhausted down to her bones. What do we do now? She asked Daniel. The reception is ruined. Our guests are probably all gone. Our wedding day is not over, Daniel said firmly. Get dressed. Come with me. Where? You'll see. 20 minutes later, Daniel led Linda back out to the reception area. She expected it to be empty. Expected everyone to have left in the chaos. But the lights were still on. Music was playing softly. And about 50 people were still there. Her closest friends. Her father. Daniel's work colleagues. People who'd stayed. When they saw Linda and Daniel, they all stood and applauded. Linda felt tears spring to her eyes. Good tears this time. Emma stepped forward. We're not letting Heather and Patricia ruin this. This is your day. So we're having a party. A real celebration. Someone had cleaned up the ketchup. Rearranged the tables. The DJ was ready to play whatever they wanted. We don't have to stay, Daniel whispered. If you want to leave, we can leave. Linda looked around at the people who'd stayed. The people who actually loved them, who wanted to celebrate their marriage despite the disaster. And she made a decision. Let's dance, she said. So they did. Linda and Daniel danced. Ate wedding cake. Laughed with their friends. Made toasts. Created memories. It wasn't the wedding they'd planned, but in some ways, it was better. Because it showed them who their real family was. Who showed up when things went wrong. Who stayed. Around midnight, as they were finally leaving the venue, Marcus approached them one more time. The police arrested Heather about an hour ago, filing a false report, creating public panic, and they're looking into charging Patricia as an accomplice since witnesses say she faked her fainting to add to the chaos. You'll need to give formal statements tomorrow, but they're taking this seriously. Good, Linda said. And she meant it. In the car on the way to their hotel, Daniel held Linda's hand. I'm sorry your dress was ruined. Me too. But you know what? I have something better than a perfect dress. I have a husband who stood by me, who cut off his toxic family to protect me, who made sure the day didn't end in disaster. You deserved better than this. Maybe. But I got you. That's more than enough. Linda looked out the window at the city lights. Thought about Patricia and Heather sitting in a police station right now, probably still trying to convince officers it was all a misunderstanding. But the cameras didn't lie. The evidence was clear. And for the first time all day, Linda smiled. A real smile. Because she'd just learned something important. When people try to destroy you, you don't crumble. You don't give them that power. You get back up. You finish your celebration. And you make damn sure they face consequences. Linda woke up the next morning in the hotel suite, wrapped in Daniel's arms. For a moment, everything felt perfect. Like the chaos of yesterday had been a bad dream. Then she saw her wedding dress hanging on the bathroom door. Still wet from where they'd tried to rinse out the ketchup. Still stained an ugly pinkish red that would never come out. It hadn't been a dream. Daniel stirred beside her. Hey, how are you feeling? Tired? Angry? But, okay, I think. Her phone was buzzing on the nightstand. 47 missed calls. Over 100 text messages. Instagram and Facebook notifications out of control. Should I look? She asked. Maybe wait until after coffee, Daniel suggested. But curiosity won. Linda opened her phone. The first thing she saw made her stomach drop. A video posted by someone at the wedding. Over 50,000 views already. The caption read, "Bride stabbed at her own wedding." Oh God. The video showed Heather screaming. Showed Linda covered in red. Showed the panic. The paramedics. The police. Everything. The comments were brutal. This is why you don't have open buffets at weddings. That dress was ugly anyway. I feel bad for laughing, but this is hilarious. The bride looks like Carrie at prom. Linda felt tears burning. They're making fun of me. Everyone's making fun of me. Daniel took the phone gently from her hands. Don't read those. People online are cruel. They don't know you. They don't know what really happened. But it was too late. Linda had seen enough. Her wedding was now internet entertainment. A viral disaster story. Probably already being discussed on morning talk shows and gossip sites. There was a knock at the door. Daniel answered it to find Marcus standing there with coffee and breakfast bags. Figured you two might need fuel before the police station, he said, coming in. How are you holding up? Been better, Linda admitted. The video is everywhere. Marcus nodded. I know. But here's what you need to remember. That video also shows Heather screaming about a stabbing when there clearly wasn't one. Shows Patricia's dramatic fainting. Shows the whole setup. It's actually evidence in your favor. How is public humiliation in my favor? Because it shows motive. Intent. This wasn't just a prank gone wrong. This was calculated to cause maximum damage and embarrassment. Any lawyer looking at that video can see it was deliberate. Daniel handed Linda coffee. Marcus is right. They made a mistake putting on such a big show. If they'd just bumped into you and apologized, it would have been believable as an accident. But the screaming, the fainting, the 911 call, they went too big. And it's going to bury them. Linda sipped her coffee, trying to feel comforted by that. What happens at the police station? You give your formal statement, Marcus explained. Walk them through what happened. How you overheard Patricia and Heather planning something weeks ago. How they've been hostile throughout your relationship. The incident yesterday. Everything. Will they be there? Patricia and Heather? They were released last night on bail. But they won't be at the station when you are. The officers will keep you separate. Linda nodded. Okay. Let's get this over with. 2 hours later, Linda and Daniel sat in an interview room at the police station. The walls were beige. The table was metal and cold. Everything smelled like industrial cleaning solution and burnt coffee. Detective Sarah Chen came in with a folder and a recording device. She was maybe 40, with sharp eyes and a professional demeanor. Mr. and Mrs. Martinez, thank you for coming in. I know yesterday was traumatic, and I appreciate you being willing to give statements so quickly. She set up the recorder. I'm going to record this, if that's okay. Just for our records. That's fine, Linda said. Let's start from the beginning. How long have you known Heather Crawford and Patricia Crawford? Linda took a deep breath and told the whole story. Meeting Daniel at the reunion. His proposal. Patricia and Heather's immediate hostility. The comments about her weight. The wedding planning sabotage. The conversation she'd overheard about making the wedding memorable for all the wrong reasons. Detective Chen took notes. And you heard them planning something specifically? Yes. 3 weeks ago. I was at Patricia's house picking up photos. I heard Heather say they should do something to make me realize I wasn't right for the family. Make the wedding memorable. They both laughed about it. Did you tell anyone at the time? I told Daniel. We discussed confronting them, but I thought it would just make things worse. I wanted to get through the wedding first. Tell me about yesterday. Walk me through what happened. Linda described the ceremony. The reception. How everything was perfect until she saw Heather near the buffet with the ketchup bottle. How Heather had walked toward her too fast. The collision. The explosion of ketchup. And then Heather's immediate screaming about stabbing. Did you see her face when she screamed? Detective Chen asked. Linda thought back. Yes. And she didn't look scared. She looked triumphant. Just for a second. Like she'd accomplished exactly what she wanted. Several witnesses have corroborated your account. And we have the security footage. It's very clear that Miss Crawford targeted you deliberately. The bottle was already opened. She maintained eye contact with you while approaching. This wasn't an accident. So what happens now? Daniel asked. Heather Crawford is being charged with filing a false police report, creating public panic, and assault. Patricia Crawford is being investigated as an accessory. She admitted to officers last night that she knew Heather was planning to embarrass the bride but claims she didn't know specifics. That's a lie, Linda said flatly. She was part of it. The fainting was too perfectly timed. I agree. And we have witnesses who heard her and Heather discussing the plan before the ceremony. We're building a case. Detective Chen leaned forward. Here's the reality. These charges can result in fines, community service, maybe even jail time depending on how the DA wants to proceed. But I want you to understand what this means. This will be public, court hearings, possibly media attention. Your family drama will be very much on display. Linda looked at Daniel. Thought about letting it go. About just moving on and pretending it never happened. But then she remembered standing there covered in ketchup. Remembered the humiliation. Remembered 300 people watching her be destroyed on what should have been the happiest day of her life. I want to proceed, Linda said firmly. They need to face consequences. Not just for what they did to me, but to show Daniel and anyone else they've hurt that this behavior isn't acceptable. Detective Chen nodded approvingly. Good. I'll pass everything to the district attorney's office. They'll be in touch about next steps. After they left the police station, Daniel drove them to a quiet park. They sat on a bench overlooking a pond, watching ducks swim in lazy circles. Are you sure about this? Daniel asked quietly. Once we go down this road, there's no turning back. My mother and sister will never forgive us. Do you want their forgiveness? Daniel was quiet for a long moment. No. I want them to understand that actions have consequences. That you can't treat people like garbage and expect no repercussions. I want them out of our lives. Permanently. Then we're doing the right thing. They sat in silence for a while. Then Daniel's phone rang. He looked at the screen and sighed. It's my uncle. My mom's brother. You can answer it. Daniel put it on speaker. Hey, Uncle Rich. Daniel. I just heard about what happened at your wedding. Your mother called me from the police station last night. She's very upset. I bet she is. She says this is all a big misunderstanding. That Heather accidentally spilled something on Linda and people overreacted. Is that true? No, Uncle Rich. That's not true at all. Heather deliberately dumped ketchup on Linda's wedding dress and then screamed that someone stabbed her, causing a massive panic. It was planned. We have it on camera. And Mom was in on it. There was a pause. Daniel, she's your mother. Family is family. Can't you just let this go? Would you let it go if someone destroyed Aunt Marie's wedding dress and humiliated her in front of hundreds of people? Another pause. Longer this time. No. I suppose I wouldn't. Then you understand why I can't let this go either. Mom and Heather have been cruel to Linda since day one. Yesterday was the last straw. I'm done protecting them from the consequences of their actions. Your mother is going to be devastated if this goes to court. She should have thought of that before she helped plan this disaster. Uncle Rich, I love you. But I need you to understand. Linda is my wife, my family now. And I'm choosing her over anyone who can't treat her with basic respect. I understand. I'm sorry this happened, Daniel. To both of you. After they hung up, Daniel leaned back on the bench. That's going to keep happening. Family members calling. Trying to guilt me into dropping charges. Saying I'm tearing the family apart. Are you going to change your mind? Linda asked. Absolutely not. But it's going to be exhausting. Over the next few days, the calls kept coming. Daniel's aunt. His cousin. A family friend. All of them with the same message. Family should forgive. Move on. Not air dirty laundry in court. None of them seemed to care about what Patricia and Heather had done. Only about protecting the family image. Daniel blocked most of them. Changed his number. Made it clear he was done with that part of his family. Meanwhile, the district attorney's office moved forward quickly. They scheduled a preliminary hearing for 2 weeks out. Linda and Daniel met with the prosecutor, a sharp woman named Jennifer Torres who specialized in assault and harassment cases. I've reviewed all the evidence, Jennifer said, spreading photos and documents across her desk. The security footage. Witness statements. Your account of their behavior leading up to the wedding. This is one of the clearest cases of premeditated harassment I've seen. What are we looking at in terms of charges? Daniel asked. For Heather, we're going with filing a false emergency report, creating public panic, assault, and destruction of property. For Patricia, accessory to all of the above plus conspiracy. If convicted, Heather is looking at possible jail time. Patricia will likely get fines and probation at minimum. Linda felt a rush of validation. They might actually go to jail? It's possible. Depends on the judge. But even if they don't, they'll have criminal records. Heather could lose her job. They'll both pay significant fines. And they'll have to deal with the public shame of a trial. Good, Linda said without hesitation. Jennifer smiled slightly. I like your attitude. Too many victims want to minimize and forgive. But what happened to you was deliberate, cruel, and illegal. You have every right to demand justice. The preliminary hearing happened on a cold Tuesday morning. Linda dressed carefully. Professional navy dress. Hair pulled back. Minimal makeup. She wanted to look credible. Sympathetic. Like someone who'd been victimized, not someone seeking revenge. The courtroom was small. Patricia and Heather sat with their lawyer on one side. Linda and Daniel sat with Jennifer on the other. Linda hadn't seen Patricia or Heather since the wedding. She'd almost forgotten how much she hated looking at them. Patricia looked smaller somehow. Older. Her expensive clothes couldn't hide the stress lines around her eyes. Heather looked defiant. Chin up. Like she was the victim here. The judge, an older man named Judge Richardson, reviewed the case file with careful attention. This is a preliminary hearing to determine if there's enough evidence to proceed to trial, he said. Miss Torres, present your case. Jennifer stood. Your Honor, the evidence is overwhelming. We have video footage showing Heather Crawford deliberately colliding with the victim while holding an open container of ketchup. We have audio of her immediately screaming about a stabbing when she knew no such thing had occurred. We have witness testimony from over 50 people corroborating the events. And we have documentation of a pattern of harassment leading up to this incident. She played the security footage on the courtroom screen. Everyone watched as Heather walked purposefully toward Linda, bottle in hand. Watched the collision. Watched Heather's face as she started screaming. It was damning. Patricia and Heather's lawyer, a man named Gerald Simmons, stood. Your Honor, my clients admit there was an incident, but it was an unfortunate accident blown out of proportion. Miss Crawford panicked when she saw what appeared to be blood. Mrs. Patricia Crawford fainted from shock. There was no malicious intent. The footage shows clear intent, Jennifer countered. Miss Heather Crawford looked directly at Mrs. Martinez before the collision. The bottle was already opened. And witnesses report hearing her discuss plans to make the wedding memorable weeks before the event. Judge Richardson reviewed the footage again. Then looked at Heather. Miss Crawford, do you have anything to say? Heather stood. Your Honor, I never meant to hurt anyone. I was carrying ketchup for my food, and I tripped. I panicked when I saw all the red. I made a mistake, but I'm not a criminal. A mistake is spilling coffee on someone, Judge Richardson said drily. This appears to be considerably more calculated. I'm allowing this case to proceed to trial. Bail conditions remain in effect. Trial date will be set within 60 days. Court dismissed. Patricia burst into tears. Heather's face went white. Their lawyer hurried them out of the courtroom while they were still processing what had happened. Jennifer turned to Linda and Daniel with a satisfied smile. That went well. Judge Richardson doesn't suffer fools. If he thinks there's a case, there's a case. Outside the courthouse, a few reporters were waiting. News of the Ketchup bride had made this case moderately famous locally. Mrs. Martinez, how do you feel about the judge's decision? Linda stopped, took a breath, and spoke clearly. I feel vindicated. What happened at my wedding wasn't an accident. It was a calculated attack meant to humiliate and harm me. I'm grateful the legal system is taking this seriously. And I hope this sends a message that harassment and cruelty have consequences. No one should have to endure what I went through. Do you have any message for Patricia and Heather Crawford? Linda looked directly into the camera. Actions have consequences. You chose cruelty. Now you face justice. That night, Linda's statement was on the local news. The video of her speaking confidently, clearly, without shame or weakness. Emma texted her, "You looked amazing. So strong. I'm proud of you." Her father called. "That's my girl. Standing up for yourself. Your mother would be so proud." Even Daniel's Uncle Rich called. "I saw you on the news. You're right. They deserve what's coming to them. I'm sorry I tried to talk you out of this." Linda fell asleep that night feeling something she hadn't felt since before the wedding. Power. She wasn't a victim anymore. She was someone who fought back, who demanded justice, who refused to be broken. And Patricia and Heather were about to learn that destroying someone's wedding was the biggest mistake they'd ever made. The trial was set for 6 weeks later. 6 weeks of preparation. Of going over testimony with Jennifer. Of watching the security footage so many times Linda could recite every second from memory. 6 weeks of Daniel's extended family choosing sides. Some supporting them. Others accusing them of being vindictive and destroying the family. 6 weeks of watching Patricia and Heather's lawyer try every trick in the book to get the charges dismissed or reduced. But Jennifer held firm. They're going to try to paint you as the aggressor. As someone who's blowing an accident out of proportion because you're sensitive about your weight. Don't take the bait. Stay calm. Tell the truth. Let the evidence speak for itself. Linda practiced her testimony until she could deliver it without crying. Without anger creeping into her voice. Just facts. Clear, simple facts. The trial began on a Wednesday morning in early November. The courtroom was packed. Not just with family and friends, but with spectators. The Ketchup bride case had captured public attention. People were curious. Would this be justice or would it be dismissed as a family squabble? Linda wore a simple gray suit. Hair neat. Minimal jewelry. She wanted the jury to see her as credible, professional. Not dramatic or attention-seeking. Heather wore a soft pink dress with a white collar. Looking innocent. Young. Like someone incapable of deliberate cruelty. Patricia wore black. Tissues in hand. Playing the devastated mother role perfectly. The jury was selected. 8 women. 4 men. A range of ages and backgrounds. Jennifer gave her opening statement first. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case is about a bride who should have been celebrating the happiest day of her life. Instead, she was deliberately humiliated, traumatized, and assaulted by her husband's family. The defense will try to convince you this was an accident, but the evidence will show you something very different. It will show you calculation, malice, and a pattern of harassment that culminated in an attack designed to cause maximum damage and embarrassment. By the end of this trial, you will see clearly that Heather and Patricia Crawford are guilty of every charge against them." Gerald Simmons, the defense attorney, stood next. He was older. Silver hair. Expensive suit. The kind of lawyer who specialized in making guilty people seem sympathetic. "Ladies and gentlemen, families are complicated. Weddings are stressful. Sometimes, in the chaos of a big event, accidents happen. My clients made a mistake. They panicked. They overreacted. But they are not criminals." Heather Crawford accidentally spilled ketchup on the bride's dress and, seeing what looked like blood, panicked and called for help. Patricia Crawford fainted from shock. These are the actions of people who were scared and confused, not malicious attackers. The prosecution wants you to believe this was some elaborate plot, but the truth is far simpler. This was an accident that spiraled out of control. Nothing more. Jennifer called her first witness. Emma, Linda's best friend and maid of honor. Emma took the stand and was sworn in. She looked nervous but determined. Miss Patterson, how long have you known Linda Martinez? 15 years. Since college. And in those 15 years, would you describe her as someone who exaggerates or creates drama? No. Absolutely not. Linda is one of the most grounded, rational people I know. She doesn't overreact to things. Can you tell the jury about the interactions you witnessed between Linda and the defendants? Emma described the wedding planning. Patricia's comments about the dress being inappropriate for Linda's size. Heather's constant criticism. The atmosphere of hostility. At the wedding itself, did you observe anything unusual about Heather Crawford's behavior? Yes. About 20 minutes before the incident, I saw her near the buffet. She was opening bottles of ketchup. Testing them. Like she was looking for one that would spray easily. I thought it was odd at the time, but I didn't think much of it until later. Gerald cross-examined. Isn't it possible she was simply getting ketchup for her food? She never ate any food, Emma said firmly. She opened those bottles and then put them back down. She was testing them. You're speculating about her intent. I'm describing what I saw. Jennifer called more witnesses. Guests who'd heard Patricia and Heather whispering before the incident. The venue coordinator who'd seen Heather loitering near the buffet. The paramedic who confirmed the ketchup was clearly not blood upon close inspection. Then she called Marcus, Daniel's best man. Marcus described his role as a police detective, how he'd immediately recognized the scene as suspicious. How he'd requested the security footage and seen what really happened. In your professional opinion, Detective Thompson, was this an accident? No. This was a premeditated assault. Miss Crawford deliberately targeted the victim, used an already opened condiment to ensure maximum splatter, and then immediately began screaming about a stabbing to create panic. This was calculated to cause emotional distress and public humiliation. Gerald tried to discredit him. You're friends with the groom. Aren't you biased? I'm a professional with 12 years of experience. I know the difference between an accident and an attack. This was an attack. On the second day, Jennifer played the security footage for the jury. The courtroom went silent as everyone watched. Heather picking up the ketchup bottle. Testing the cap. Walking purposefully toward Linda. The collision. The immediate screaming before Linda even reacted. It was damning. Even more so on the big screen where every detail was visible. Several jury members looked visibly disturbed. Then Jennifer called Linda to the stand. Linda's hands were shaking as she was sworn in, but she kept her voice steady. Mrs. Martinez, can you describe your relationship with the defendants before your wedding? Linda took a deep breath and told her story. Meeting Daniel. Falling in love. Patricia and Heather's immediate hostility. The constant comments about her weight. The conversation she'd overheard about making the wedding memorable for all the wrong reasons. When you saw Heather approaching you with the ketchup, what did you think? I thought she was going to do something. I tried to move, but she was too fast. And then, everything went red. I was covered in ketchup. And before I could even process what happened, she was screaming that I'd been stabbed. How did that make you feel? Linda's voice cracked slightly. Humiliated. Devastated. It was my wedding day. I'd spent 2 years planning it. I'd felt beautiful for the first time in my life in that dress. And in seconds, it was ruined. I was standing there in front of 300 people looking like a crime scene victim while everyone panicked and took videos. It was the worst moment of my life. Do you believe this was an accident? No. I know it wasn't. Heather wanted to ruin my day. She succeeded. Gerald Simmons approached for cross-examination. Mrs. Martinez, isn't it true that you've always been insecure about your weight? Jennifer objected. Relevance, Your Honor? I'm establishing the witness's state of mind, Gerald argued. I'll allow it, but tread carefully, Mr. Simmons. Gerald turned back to Linda. You heard the question. Haven't you struggled with body image issues? I'm plus size, yes. And society often makes that difficult. But I'm comfortable with who I am. But Patricia and Heather's comments about your appearance bothered you. Their comments were cruel and inappropriate. That's not about insecurity. That's about basic respect. Isn't it possible you've been overly sensitive to their actions because of your own insecurities? That you've interpreted accidents as attacks? Linda felt anger flare but kept her voice level. This wasn't about sensitivity. They deliberately tried to destroy my wedding. The evidence shows that clearly. Or maybe you tripped into Heather, the ketchup spilled, and you've constructed this entire narrative because you can't accept that sometimes accidents just happen. I didn't trip. She walked into me. On purpose. And I'm done letting people like you make me question what I know happened. Jennifer smiled slightly. Linda had held firm. Hadn't let Gerald rattle her. Heather took the stand next. She maintained her story. It was all an accident. She'd been carrying ketchup for her fries. She'd tripped. The bottle was loose. When she saw the red, she panicked and called for help. I never meant to hurt Linda, Heather said, tears in her eyes. I just wanted my brother to be happy. This whole thing has been blown completely out of proportion. But on cross-examination, Jennifer destroyed her. Miss Crawford, you testified that you were carrying the ketchup for your food. But witnesses state you never actually got food. Can you explain that? Heather hesitated. I changed my mind. I wasn't hungry anymore. You changed your mind in the 30 seconds between picking up the ketchup and colliding with the bride? I guess so. And when you screamed that someone had stabbed Mrs. Martinez, you didn't know it was ketchup? It looked like blood. I panicked. But you just spilled the ketchup yourself. You knew it was ketchup because you were holding the bottle. Yet you immediately screamed about stabbing. Why would you do that if you knew it was ketchup? Heather's face went red. I was confused. Everything happened so fast. Or you wanted to create maximum chaos and humiliation for the bride. Which is exactly what happened. No. That's not true. Jennifer pulled out a printed transcript. Miss Crawford, 3 weeks before the wedding, you had a conversation with your mother at her home. You stated, and I quote, "We should do something to make her realize she's not right for this family. Make the wedding memorable for all the wrong reasons." Do you remember saying that? Heather went pale. That was taken out of context. What context makes that statement acceptable? I was just venting. I didn't mean anything by it. You plotted to ruin your brother's wedding, executed that plan, and now you're claiming it was all just venting and accidents. Is that your testimony? Heather looked at her lawyer desperately. But there was nothing he could do. She'd been caught. I made a mistake, she finally whispered. Yes. You did. A deliberate, calculated, cruel mistake. Patricia took the stand last. She maintained that she'd known nothing about Heather's plans. She'd fainted genuinely from shock at seeing what she thought was blood. But Jennifer had witnesses who'd heard them whispering together before the incident, who'd seen Patricia nod to Heather right before Heather approached Linda. Mrs. Crawford, you've made numerous comments about the bride's appearance over the past 2 years. Comments about her weight, her choice of dress, her suitability for your son. Is that true? Patricia lifted her chin. I had concerns. Any mother would. Concerns? Or cruelty? Because multiple witnesses have testified that you called Linda inappropriate and suggested she wasn't good enough for your family. I was protecting my son. From what? From a woman who loves him? Who's successful, kind, and devoted? Or were you protecting your own narrow view of what a daughter-in-law should look like? Patricia's mouth tightened. I don't have to justify my feelings. No. But you do have to justify your actions. And conspiring to humiliate your son's bride is not justified by any feeling. The trial lasted 5 days total. Testimonies. Evidence. Expert witnesses on crowd psychology and false emergency reports. On the final day, both lawyers gave closing arguments. Gerald painted Patricia and Heather as flawed but well-meaning family members who'd made a mistake in a moment of panic. Jennifer painted them as calculated abusers who'd spent 2 years tormenting Linda and had culminated their harassment with a public assault designed to destroy her wedding. The evidence is clear, Jennifer said. The security footage. The witness testimony. The pattern of behavior. This was not an accident. This was revenge. Revenge because Patricia and Heather Crawford couldn't accept that Daniel Martinez had chosen a woman who didn't fit their narrow definition of acceptable. They wanted to punish Linda for existing. For being happy. For daring to marry someone they thought she didn't deserve. Don't let them get away with it. Hold them accountable. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Linda sat in the hallway with Daniel, holding his hand, trying not to think about what would happen if they lost. If Patricia and Heather walked away with no consequences. Finally, the bailiff came out. Juries reached a verdict. They filed back into the courtroom. Linda's heart was pounding so hard she thought everyone could hear it. The jury foreman stood. An older woman with kind eyes and a serious expression. On the charge of filing a false emergency report, how do you find the defendant Heather Crawford? Guilty. Linda felt tears spring to her eyes. On the charge of assault, how do you find the defendant Heather Crawford? Guilty. On the charge of destruction of property, how do you find the defendant Heather Crawford? Guilty. Heather was crying now. Real tears. The reality sinking in. On the charge of accessory to filing a false report, how do you find the defendant Patricia Crawford? Guilty. On the charge of conspiracy to commit assault, how do you find the defendant Patricia Crawford? Guilty. Patricia let out a sob. Buried her face in her hands. Judge Richardson thanked the jury and set a sentencing hearing for 2 weeks later. Outside the courtroom, Linda collapsed into Daniel's arms, sobbing. We won. We actually won. You won, Daniel corrected. You stood up to them. You refused to be a victim. You're amazing. Jennifer came over, smiling. That was one of the most satisfying verdicts I've gotten in years. You did great on the stand, Linda. What happens at sentencing? Judge Richardson will decide punishment. Based on the charges, Heather's looking at possible jail time. Patricia will likely get probation and fines. But they'll both have criminal records. This will follow them forever. 2 weeks later, they returned for sentencing. Judge Richardson looked at Heather and Patricia with clear disgust. I presided over many cases in my career. But this one particularly disturbed me. You deliberately attacked someone on what should have been the happiest day of her life. You caused trauma, humiliation, and emotional distress. And you did it out of nothing but cruelty and pettiness. He looked at his notes. Heather Crawford, you are sentenced to 90 days in county jail, followed by 2 years probation. You will also pay restitution to the victim for the cost of her wedding dress and emotional damages. Total of $15,000. Heather's face crumpled. 90 days. She was actually going to jail. Patricia Crawford, you are sentenced to 1 year probation, 300 hours of community service, and restitution payment of $5,000. You are also required to attend counseling for the duration of your probation. Patricia was crying silently. Additionally, Judge Richardson continued, both defendants are ordered to have no contact with Daniel or Linda Martinez for a period of 5 years. If you violate this order, you will face additional charges. Do you understand? They both nodded, unable to speak. Court dismissed. As they were led away, Heather looked back at Linda one last time. The hatred in her eyes was still there. But underneath it was something else. Defeat. Outside the courthouse, reporters were waiting again. Mrs. Martinez, how do you feel about the verdict? Linda took a deep breath, felt Daniel's hand in hers. Felt the weight of the past months lifting. I feel like justice was served. What happened to me wasn't okay. And now there are consequences for that. I hope this case shows other people that they don't have to accept abuse from anyone, not even family. Especially not family. Do you have any message for Patricia and Heather? Linda looked directly into the camera. I hope you use this time to reflect on how you treat people. On why you thought cruelty was acceptable. I forgive you. Not for your sake, but for mine. Because I'm not carrying this anger anymore. But forgiveness doesn't mean no consequences. Actions have consequences. Remember that. That night, Linda and Daniel had dinner at their favorite restaurant. Just the two of them. I can't believe it's over, Linda said. Months of stress and court dates and testimony. And now it's just done. How do you feel? Linda thought about it. Lighter. Like I can finally breathe again. Like I don't have to be afraid anymore. I'm sorry you had to go through any of this. I'm not. Linda squeezed his hand. I mean, I'm sorry about the wedding disaster. But going through this, standing up for myself, pressing charges even when people said I should let it go, that changed me. I'm stronger now. More confident. I know what I'm worth. And I know I won't tolerate being treated badly. Not by anyone. Daniel smiled. You've always been strong. You just finally let everyone else see it. 3 weeks later, something unexpected arrived in the mail. An invitation. Not to anything related to Patricia or Heather, but from the original wedding venue. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Martinez, we were heartbroken about what happened at your reception. We'd like to offer you a complimentary venue rental for a vow renewal ceremony. On us. Whatever date you'd like within the next year. Consider it our wedding gift. You deserve a proper celebration. Linda showed it to Daniel, tears in her eyes. They want to give us a do-over. Do you want one? Linda thought about it. You know what? Yes. I want to put on another beautiful dress and marry you again. But this time, without anyone trying to ruin it. Just us and the people who actually love us. They scheduled the vow renewal for 6 months later. Small this time. Just 50 people. Their closest friends. Linda's father. Daniel's uncle Rich and a few other supportive family members. No Patricia. No Heather. No one who'd ever made Linda feel less than. Linda found a new dress. This one was even more beautiful than the first. Champagne-colored with gold embroidery. Fitted perfectly to her curves. Made her feel like a queen. The day of the renewal was perfect. Sunny and warm. The same garden venue but transformed with different flowers. Different decorations. A fresh start. When Linda walked down the aisle this time, there was no fear. No worry that someone would try to ruin it. Just joy. Daniel cried again when he saw her. You're even more beautiful than I remembered. They renewed their vows. This time with words about resilience. About choosing each other even when it's hard. About building a family based on love, not obligation. The reception was intimate and perfect. Good food. Good music. People who genuinely celebrated their love. No ketchup bottles anywhere near the buffet. They'd specifically banned all condiments that could stain. Everyone laughed about it. As Linda and Daniel danced their first dance again, she looked around at the smiling faces of their chosen family. This was what a wedding should be. Joy. Love. Support. No drama. No cruelty. Just celebration. What are you thinking about? Daniel asked. I'm thinking about how glad I am that your family tried to ruin our wedding. Daniel pulled back, surprised. Really? Really? Because if they hadn't, I might have spent years trying to win their approval. Trying to change myself to fit their expectations. Accepting their cruelty because family is family. But they pushed too far. And in doing that, they forced me to stand up for myself. To demand respect. To choose my own happiness over their acceptance. They gave me the greatest gift. They taught me I'm strong enough to fight back. Daniel kissed her forehead. You were always that strong. You just needed a reason to show it. Well, they gave me one hell of a reason. They danced under the stars. Celebrated with people who loved them. Made new memories that would replace the old, painful ones. And Linda realized something important. You can't always control what people do to you. Patricia and Heather had done their worst. Had tried to break her. Had wanted to see her humiliated and defeated. But they'd failed. Because strength isn't about never getting knocked down. It's about getting back up. Fighting back. Refusing to let cruel people win. Linda had been knocked down. Hard. On what should have been the best day of her life. But she'd gotten back up. She'd fought. She'd won. And now, standing in her beautiful new dress, dancing with her husband, surrounded by love, she understood the most important lesson of all. The best revenge isn't destruction. It's not becoming like the people who hurt you. The best revenge is choosing happiness anyway, building a beautiful life despite them, showing them that their cruelty has no power over your joy. Patricia was in court-mandated counseling, working through her issues. Heather had served her time and was rebuilding her life with a criminal record. And Linda? Linda was living her best life. Successful. Loved. Strong. Free. She'd taken her power back. And no one could ever take it away again. As the night wound down and guests started leaving, Linda's father pulled her aside. Your mother would be so proud of you, sweetheart. Not just for standing up to those terrible people, but for knowing when to let go. For choosing forgiveness and moving forward. That takes real strength. I learned from the best, Linda said, hugging him tight. Later, as she and Daniel drove home from their perfect renewal celebration, Linda looked at her wedding ring. The symbol of the love they'd fought for. The family they'd chosen to build. Thank you, she said softly. For what? For choosing me. For standing by me. For cutting off your family when they couldn't respect me. For showing me what real love looks like. Daniel brought her hand to his lips and kissed it. I'll choose you every single day for the rest of my life. That's the easiest choice I've ever made. Linda closed her eyes and smiled. She'd started this journey as someone afraid of not being enough. Of not fitting someone else's definition of acceptable. Of being too much or too little or just wrong. But she'd ended it as someone who knew her worth. Who demanded respect. Who refused to shrink herself to make others comfortable. And that transformation? That was worth more than a perfect wedding day. That was worth everything. Thank you for walking this difficult road with me to the very end. If this story resonated with you, you can support our community by sending a super thanks. It helps me continue to bring these important stories to light. On the screen now are 2 more stories that I know will touch your soul. I'll see you in the next one. Stay strong.